Hoist up crew, we have more work to do. So today we're going to be working on our Sea Lite 37 RC sailboat. So what's going on with this is the servos are going really slow. We have some corrosion in the battery box. We're going to split the boat along the seam here, open it up, and clean the motors and the battery box over here. So first, as always, we got to fight the scurvy. You can see by my linemen, we're running low on supplies. Hopefully the liming ship comes in. And if you find this channel useful, entertaining, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. It's going to really help us to generate more content and feel the interest. And comment on things you would like to see next. We have a lot of projects, so if there's something you want to see first, go ahead and let us know. We'll try to get that in. So let's get to our project here. And let's give a quick overview of what we need to do. So our forestay, our shrouds are connected to the top sole of the boat. There's a screw at the bow, 2 screws about midway, another 2 set of screws a little aft of the mast, 2 screws at the helm seat under the sticker. So those need to come loose to split the seam. To get our shrouds and our stays off, we're just going to loosen them up because we're going to take the mast and sail off all at one time. The only one that we need to actually fully disassemble is this rear stay. And that's because it connects to the bottom hole of the boat. So it's just to give us some more working room, and we want this all the way off the boat. We're just going to disconnect this one. The other ones we're just going to loosen up and take it off as one. Okay, so before we jump into our project, we're going to turn our helm to access the battery slot, and we're going to turn the switch on, grab our remote control, you can see that our rudder is struggling. And looks like we lost power. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen up our backstays. And if we zoom in here, you can see we have this piece of plastic right here. This is our adjuster, just a little sleeve adjuster. The bottom is a loop and the upper part is a single piece. So as we move this up, we make a bigger loop at the bottom, tensioning up the backstay. So we're going to loosen this up and see if we can't get the knot out of this. So let's go ahead and loosen this up. We just kind of work it through the hole, kind of like a motorcycle helmet. So it's really loose now. And then here's the knot. And that looks pretty tight. We're just going to go ahead and cut that little bit off. We have enough slack here to tie a new knot. And we're going to pull this through and we'll take it out of our loop. So there's our shroud. And we're going to quickly burn the end of our backstay so it doesn't fray. A little overkill on the flame, but the job is done. Okay, so now what we have to do is take off our screws. And we'll want to turn this off, take the batteries out. The boat takes 4 AA's and the remote takes 1 9-volt battery. So let's zoom in here and you can see the corrosion inside the battery tray. We are going to grab our number 0 screwdriver, and this is a Phillips. And one thing we will also have to do is to undo our main sheet from the boom. and our jib sheet from the jib boom. They just tied a little quick loop in here, and this one should be easy to remove. The sheet's so tiny, grabbing a little pick to help undo the knot. Now our boom is free. We're going to do the same to our jib sheet up here. Again, we're going to use our pick to get in there and separate the knot. Okay, we've finished undoing our jib sheet. The sails are free. Now we're going to continue on with removing the screws. And it's always good to bring in a magnet. Okay, pretty impressed that they actually use stainless steel screws in here. Our magnetic tip screwdriver is not taking out the screws. So we'll be careful when we tip this over to remove the screws. We got one up in the bow here. Hate that sound of plastic creaking. So our forestay is really loose now without the backstay supporting it. And we're just continuing to work around the boat, removing the screws. Okay, so we removed all the visible screws. One at the bow, two just before the mast, two aft the mast, two screws at the helm seat under the sticker, and then two screws up here. We might get a small razor blade to try to get under the sticker without destroying it. Continue on with our removal. Okay, so we won't need to remove the screw at the swim platform, just the two at the helm seat. We got the corner of the sticker up, and we're going to slowly pull it away to access our screws. Very carefully. Hopefully we can reuse it. If not, maybe we can get a new sticker made. And there's our two screw holes. Okay, so we got the screws undone. We're just gonna lightly push our sticker back over so we don't get anything under it. We'll pry it up later. We just don't want any dirt to get under it. We might use a little adhesive to keep it back down. Okay, so pry up at the seam. You can hear the pop. And now, once we take off the lid, our two sheet lines are going to run through the top sole out of the boat. So let's take a closer look at what we have inside the boat. Okay, so inside our Sea Lite 37, we have our computer, and then we have our servo in the white for our jib sheet and our main sheet. We have a line going up the mast. This is our antenna. Clever place to put it. Battery tray. And in the back we have our rudder servo. So let's get in there and try to clean these up. Okay, so investigation. Looks like our only corrosion points is the battery tray. The servos don't show any sign of corrosion. So before we spray any chemicals in there, need to take those apart, we're just going to try refurbing the battery tray. Then we'll retest the servos and see if we have any improvement. Okay, got our flathead screwdriver. We're going to pry the connector off. Okay, pry our connection off. Now we can run our harness through the bottom of the sheet motor. Okay, so now we move up to the battery box. So our battery box has 4 tiny screws. Again, they're Phillips. And we're going to go ahead and remove the battery tray. We've removed the 4 screws, and our battery tray is right here. We also need to remove our on and off switch. That has 2 Phillips. And this one has very short screws. Dropping the little screws in the bilge of this boat, it's a lot easier to find than on a real boat. So now our battery tray is removed. And it looks like this is actually on a different connection. We'll need to find out where these plug in at. Looks like it plugs in at the bottom of the board. So we'll go ahead and lift the board up. So we'll take a look under the board, make sure there's no corrosion. And underneath looks good as well. It does help that there is conformal coating on here to protect the board. And our power connections are soldered to the board. To make this repair easier, and since the negative is already corroded, we're going to cut the leads off, give us some room to work. Okay, there's our wires removed. Here's our battery tray. We're going to take a little bit of the insulation left off the wire to see how far that corrosion goes back. So we stripped a little bit of that connection, and there's actually green corrosion on the wire here, so we're definitely making a bad connection. So we'll strip that wire back further until we get clean wire, probably causing a bad connection. So what I'll probably do is see if we can't find replacement contacts here. So let's go ahead and pry these out of here. So first we're going to lift up our retaining tangs. I'll pry them upwards. And this one's pretty corroded. It's actually broke the little circle on it. We'll get our little needle nose. Straighten that up. And we can pry this battery contact upwards. So definitely the ones where the sides with the springs are the worst. So here's one of our tangs. You can see how much rust is at the base of the spring. This other one on the other side is in better shape. Very little corrosion or rust. And we're gonna have to wait until we get our soldering iron back down here to remove this extra wire, and so we can pry these up. Welcome back, crew. We should have all the parts needed to fix our RC sailboat. We got a lot of boxes here. New contacts from DigiKey that will replace our corroded contacts, and we'll go through those part numbers so you know what to order. Alright, so let's dive in these boxes and see what we have. Okay, so after all the boxes, this little bit right here is all we have. A lot of packaging. From DigiKey, what we're really interested in new contact pieces. All we have to do is install that into our battery box and get this boat back together. Okay, so we got our new parts lined up. So the components we needed were from DigiKey, made by Keystone Electronics. Alright, so we have tried to repair the black wire. However, I continued to cut the wire back further and further and never got to clean copper. So now we're going to remove it from the board and we're going to put a new piece of wire in. It's 18 gauge. So just to remove it, we got our soldering gun heated up. Now we're just going to touch the contact and pull it away. Let's zoom in. Okay, so here's our black wire. Now we got some conformal coating on the board. We'll put some type of sealant on top of it. Here's our wire, taken apart. And we got our new wire. Probably about a foot long. Comes to about here on my arm. So I'm going to take our razor blade. I probably just need to take about 1/4 of an inch off. So now we got our wire stripped. Got a little bit on the end. We'll go ahead and just put a little bit of tin on this piece of wire. I like to use the Lester lead solder. Melts better, corrodes less. All around better. First, as always, we're going to tin our solder iron. Just put a little bit on there. So you just put a little bit on our wire, and then we're going to attach it to the board. I'm going to push the wire onto the board. Since we already got some solder on it, they should just connect together. We made our new connection right here. So now we get to see if the positive wire off our switch is corroded. I see a little bit of corrosion at the switch, so hopefully that's not the case. I'm going to feed our wire under. And we'll cut off whatever we don't need. Okay, we'll flip our circuit board back over. And we'll take a look at our switch. Okay, so we just disconnected our switch from the lead. Okay, so we got our switch here. We have an extra slot on the switch, open port. We're just going to connect a new wire right there. And since the negative was bad, we'll just go ahead and put a new wire on the positive as well. Take a wire, we're going to strip about 1/4 of an inch. We're going to tin the end. Okay, under further investigation, we'll probably leave it attached to the board as I cut it back a little bit and I got clean wire. So we'll just solder a little bit of a lead just to lengthen our wire some and attach it to the new portion of the switch. So now we're going to go ahead and strip both ends of the wire, and so the portion that goes through the switch is going to be shorter. We don't need it very long. Okay, so just a little bit showing, and then on the other end, since we're going to twist them together, I want to leave a little bit longer. And to connect these together, we're just going to twist the leads. Actually looks like the original boat wire is probably closer to 20, 22 gauge. We got our wires twisted together. Tin the soldering iron. It's not going to take much solder to fix this. I guess we want to touch the solder to the wire, and we'll have the soldering iron on the other side. We want to make sure that the wire is high enough. There's our connection. And to make sure that this positive doesn't harm anything, we're going to take some heat shrink, cut it longer than our repair, and slide it over the wire, and this will seal the connection for us. Now we gotta get out our heat gun. Okay, we got our heat gun ready to go. We'll heat up and you can watch the heat shrink. We want to keep this away from the boat. This thing can put out about 500-600 degrees. And we're just going to turn it on low, twist the wire so it evenly heats. Now we can move up to the switch. Okay, so now that we got our positive side soldered together, the heat shrink, we're going to take our two wires and just twist them together slightly just to help manage the wires better. And then we'll run these under our sheet motor and secure the circuit board back into position. Now that we pulled our wires through, we got our circuit board back where it belongs. We'll secure it with 2 screws. Grab our number 0 screwdriver. Run our screw in. We'll grab our second screw. This one's a little more trickier because it's in the back over here. So now we want to fix our antenna lead. And that just gets soldered on the board over here. Our frayed portion. Then we'll grab our razor blade. And we're just going to do a very small amount. Strip the wire. And we'll get our soldering iron ready. So we have that soldered in place. We'll probably use a little bit of hot glue to hold that in place to make sure it doesn't stress that connection. Okay, so the next step, we want to connect our switch with our wire. So we're going to just move up to the front of the boat a little bit, feed the wires into our switch lead. And we're just going to fold those wires just over just to hold it in there while we solder this. So we got our wire soldered. So let's get our hot glue. Okay, so we put some hot glue right on our antenna connection to support it. There was some on there before, but it was so old it just chipped off. And then since I did solder on this board underneath, I do want to put a little hot glue right where I disrupted the conformal coating. That's all I'm going to need the hot glue for, is just to protect that. Alright, so now that's done, we can start to work on our battery tray. So first thing we need to do is we'll go ahead and just clean the rust out of there, and then we'll put in our new contacts and then solder them in. So we have our battery tray cleaned, all the rust removed, nice and white. So now we get to put our connectors back into the box. So let's do that next. So for these, we have 3 double plates. 2 of them are the same. So these 2 are the same, and this one is the opposite. And then we have 2 single plates, a negative and a positive that we will solder our leads to power our motors. So it's nice that this battery tray has a diagram on the inside to show us where the connections go. So we're going to grab a double plate. So we have positive and then we have negative. So we're going to put our plate in, drop it straight down, And you can see the tang start to come out through the back. We'll just grab a flathead screwdriver and push it down into the tray. So these are a little bit different, but I think they should still work. They're a little narrow, but they did fit in the tray. There's our lug off the back. We don't need to do anything with this lug, so we just bend it over to lock it in. We'll grab our next plate, which is going to be the same, and we'll go ahead and slide that in. Once we got it all the way in, again we'll come to the back and we'll just bend it over, and that will lock it in place. So we got half our box done. Next we'll put in our third plate. This one will go in the center, work it down into the tray, lock it in place. For our last one, we need to solder in our leads. So we'll get our soldering iron ready, get that heating up. Now let's go ahead and put our positive lead in. Now we're just going to go ahead and stick a battery in here just to hold my lead in place. So this one's ready to be soldered. We just need to strip our negative lead. Okay, so we'll just twist up our wire leads. Got our solder ready. Soldering. We'll just tin it really quick. We got some on the tip. And we'll come down to our leads. Line down. So now we'll go ahead and feed our negative in. Lock that one in place. We'll remove the battery. And we'll go ahead and put our negative in. Do the same thing, we'll put a battery into the slot just to lock that in place. So we'll feed that lead through the slot. Take our little needle nose and work that lead around. Take our soldering iron, and there's our connection. So now we're done with soldering, and let's go ahead and put this back together. Okay, let's go ahead and put the rudder servo motor in. Once this is in, we can go ahead and check the functionality, make sure everything's working as it should be before we button it back together. So for this motor, we just kind of tuck it in and pop it up. So we want to make sure that we engage into the rudder slot right here. Pretty tight fit, but you just wiggle it in to place. And we use 4 mounting screws to hold the servo in place. So all 4 screws installed. So now everything is connected. We can go ahead and we can test our repair. Grab our remote controller, power it on. Looks like it's working pretty good. Okay, so now that we tested it, let's go ahead and install our battery tray. We will remove the batteries just to make it easier to install, reduce the weight. And the tray only goes in one way. The mounting holes are spaced differently. We'll attach this with 4 screws. The battery tray is secure. So next we can install our switch. We have our 2 small screws. Our switch is on. The next thing to do will be to make sure that our sheets are ran through and to make sure that our wires in the back are not going to cause any issue with our sheet servo. Now there is a gasket between here, so we need to make sure that gasket is on. We didn't take ours off and it remained in place. But if you do this, just make sure that that gasket did not fall out or is wrinkled in some way. Let's give the boat a little squeeze. sure it's back together. Before we tighten them down all the way, we want to make sure that they're all seated. They're all tensioned. Then we'll apply our sticker, and the corner lost its adhesion off Amazon. I bought this double stick tape dispenser, and we just put a little bit on the edge here, and we'll work our sticker down, taking out any air bubbles, and stick it right to the adhesion tape. Last step is to tie the sheets back on, and we'll start by just putting it at the same exact location they had before. But we'll go ahead and tension our backstay. You can see where it used to be, and we're going to put it in the same spot. I'm going to go around our chain plate back here on the stern. Now we go through our stay adjuster. We'll take a little bit more slack out of it so we can tie our knot. And we're just going to do a square knot or reef knot. Now we just pull the bottom half of the backstay while moving our adjuster up, and we'll tension it to about where it was before. Now that we've got it tensioned, we just make sure our mast is straight. It's good. So we got our lithium batteries in. We can go ahead and put it in our battery cover. Turn it on first. Put new batteries in it. It is ready for sailing. Alright crew, this completes our tutorial and repair of a Sea Lite 37 sailboat. The issue was the battery plates were corroded. We replaced those with brand new ones from DigiKey. We also replaced the negative ground wire from the battery box to the control board, as the whole wire was corroded. And we also replaced a segment of the positive wire from the battery box to the switch. Now it's working great. Can't wait to see it on the water. We'll see you next time, crew.